right, hello, and welcome back to Behind the Lines with Gabe and Kev. This is your Week 13 review. How you doing, Kev?
I'm doing good. I'm feeling a lot better this week. Coming off a huge win for me, and it's a good week to be here. I know some
Congratulations to you,
people.
sir.
Thank you. Congratulations to you for clinching. I'm not officially there, but things are looking up.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm in about to win. I wasn't implying that you've clinched or anything, but
It
you
was a
know,
big
we'll,
win.
we'll go ahead and dive in here as always. As usual, we got my matchup first. The Slim Reaper Sleepers tank on no longer tanking. And I put an end to his hopes to play spoiler against me at least. And he almost did it with some of the guys that I traded him actually. 135 to 113 in the end. I move up to fourth place at 8-5. Sam drops down to 2-11, still in 12th place. And he with that loss now, actually, yeah, with that loss, he now actually cements himself as the poop bowl bye week. So that's going to stink for him, but we'll see if he can mount a comeback in the second 2 weeks of the poop bowl. As we look at the scores here on Sam's side, it was really, really underwhelming. I mean, Kyler Murray, pretty bad fantasy game, at least against Pittsburgh in the win. Samaje Perine, 2.6 points, who he had to play in place of James Conner, who was ruled out due to a hamstring. Pat Fryermuth, only 6 points. Calvin Ridley, kind of a return to earth with only 7. I actually took a bet under yards, under 56 for Calvin Ridley. It was a four-leg bet. I hit just like $45, me and Eli yesterday. It was nice. Of course, Cortland Sutton, the other guy I traded him, did do well, continues to perform 15.7. But obviously, Deebo Samuel, a big trade acquisition for Sam, he puts up 35.8 points, and James Conner with 22.5. So it was a fine score at 113. He performed over projected, but it wasn't enough. And as we look over to my guys, Baker Mayfield, kind of a disappointing 10 points. But ETN in that game last night put up 18 to really cement me. Ramondre Stevenson obviously fumbled, lost 2 points, and then on that exact same play got injured and never came back. So he put up a disappointing 2.9. But guys like Devontae Smith, Michael Pittman, Devon Achane, Puka Nacua, all around that 25-point mark. And that's just 100 points for me right there, which was huge. Obviously, I acquired Puka Nacua in a trade last week, and Devon Achane. This is his first real game for me, so it's great to see from those guys. Had to stream Hunter Henry and Baker, obviously, with TJ on the bye and Josh Dobbs. And I do have Ezekiel Elliott as Ramondre's handcuff if I need to play him, but it's looking like I'll probably play Devontae Adams in the flex and Devon Achane at running back 2 going forward.
Yeah, it's a good win for you. Down several big guys. Notably T.J. Hawkinson being tight end one, and then Devontae Adams has had his ups and downs, but definitely a solid piece to have. And getting the job done with a couple low scores and an injury, but 135 is very respectable for sure. Solid win. Sam puts up 113, not a bad mark. Nothing crazy, but this gets you in the playoffs. That's just getting the job done, and now you can kind of sit back and relax for week 14 and just kind of worry about seeding. But this is a good win, looking like a playoff team, and I've got hopes for Sam. I know he lost. I know he's got the bye, but I have a good feeling he'll be pretty solid down there in the poop bowl bracket. But next matchup is Paul Allen versus Netflix and Hill. This was our game of the week, the first and third guys on the leaderboards. Al comes away with the win here, 137 to 112. Very similar score to your game that we just covered. He streams Matthew Stafford with Lamar Jackson on a bye, who gives him 29 points. The Rams offense against the best defense, supposedly by, I guess on paper, is the best defense. The Rams absolutely had their way with them. But Derrick Henry, anytime there's a shootout game, he's going to get touchdowns. He pulls 25 here. Rashad White is RB7 on the year, I think, and he pulls 20. A.J. Brown, 20. Brandon Cooks, 16. George Kittle, 10. T. Higgins, 6. And Bijan, 11. Very solid performance, a lot of consistency. No huge games necessarily, but a lot of great games, and well worthy of getting a solid win there. And then for Eli, a huge game from Brock Purdy and a huge game from Tyreek Hill. But the rest of his team kind of falls apart. Brandon Ayuk does his projected of 15, but no one else really gets the job done. Devontae Parker's an interesting stream. I guess Gus Edwards on a bye, and kind of forced into a sticky situation there with him and Trey Palmer. Those are actually pretty poor plays. You got Jordan Addison on a bye down there. and maybe Dallas Goedert returning as well. So, things could look better for Eli. Obviously, not too bad of a loss for him. It doesn't really matter too much, but he kind of does expose himself to falling a little bit here in the standings if he drops another game. But he's in, and this pretty much secures Al's spot for the bye week. So solid game from both these guys, and they're ready for the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Al's team performed well over projected. Obviously, T. Higgins the only one who really underperforms. And he had two major guys on a bye, Lamar Jackson and Stephon Diggs, and then obviously Christian Watson, who put up a big game, but he got hurt. So we'll see the future there. But I don't think this is super negative for Eli. I think this was a bad game for Logan Thomas, but Sam Howell does throw the ball a lot. He's been all right. And if Dallas Goedert comes back, you can stream based on matchups. Obviously he'll have Jordan Addison in one of those flex spots. And then between Demario Douglas, who has been, a consistent 10 to 15 points for the last 5, 6 weeks, honestly. And Gus Edwards, I think he'll have fine guys. And interestingly, Brock Purdy with 37.4 was actually the highest fantasy score player this week.
I didn't know that. That's pretty cool. There's a few QBs that were up there. I guess 37 is the max. It's rare no one drops a 40 bomb.
Yeah, and this is another point. It kind of points to what we were talking about with Charlie, but takes more than a quarterback. Obviously, Eli had the highest scoring fantasy player this week, and he still lost his game by 20. And I had a quarterback put up less than 10, and I still won the game by 20. So it's really interesting where guys try to find balance. But here in our third matchup, Scary Terry's Big Toe gets a crucial win over the waiver wizard, kind of puts an end to Alex's hot streak. Alex falls down to 6-7 in eighth place, and Wyatt moves up to 7-6 in fifth, officially back in the playoffs at this moment. 131 to 110, another 20-point deficit, very similar to the other two games we've looked at so far. But as we look at the scores, obviously the top half of Wyatt's team was super heavy this week. Jalen Hurts 26, Alvin Kamara 29, Pacheco 21, and Nico Collins 34. And then you see a huge drop off with Garrett Wilson at 8, Njoku at 3.7, and Wyatt. I do have to say, I told you to play Evan Ingram. You did get the win, but you started Njoku, and I just had a feeling. So maybe listen to me going forward. But Terry McLaurin puts up a stinker, and Javonte Williams underperforms a little bit, but nothing too bad. 131 is definitely good to help you in terms of points for if he is going to be one of those tiebreaker teams at the end of the season. And then looking at Alex's scores, it was kind of disappointing. A lot of guys who had been overperforming maybe what they normally would do kind of come back to earth. CJ Stroud 18, Jalen Warren 6.5. Consistent guys with like Tony Pollard, but Amon Ra only 13 points is disappointing. And then Adam Thielen, a huge drop off down to 5 points, and Jerry Jeudy with 8. But beyond that, he put up a decent score at 110. I mean, under projected, but it just wasn't enough to get it done.
Yeah, this was one of our primetime games, 2 6-6 teams coming in. Wyatt held the tiebreaker between all the 6-6 teams, and him winning this really does wonders for his team. Puts him in a really good spot going forward. This is a little bad for Alex, especially with my win here. To drop this game, this was a much needed win for him. He's not out yet. He's still there. It's because he holds the tiebreaker on Bennett, but this is definitely going to put a lot of pressure on his squad. He's come a long way this season. And it's been great to see him get this far. So I'm curious if he's gonna be able to close it down. But drops this game, only puts up 110. It's just not gonna cut it when you're coming into these crunch time games. You got to put up good scores. And Wyatt puts up 131, gets the job done, even with the goose egg, which is crazy, and a couple guys on bye. So props to Wyatt, and he's looking like he's in playoff form.
Yeah, definitely. He seems to have turned the roster around from a losing streak that he was fighting off, and now he's looking in. He's on the inside looking out.
Absolutely. But next game, the triumvirate versus Riley Reed option. Henry takes this 132 to 67, moves him to 9-4, and he remains in second. And Tal falls to 4-9, and he's in 11th now. I don't know if he was there prior to this game or not, but Tal puts up a.
I think he was ahead of Charlie.
Was he? Okay, not anymore. 67. Just ain't going to get the job done. Juwan Johnson, donut. Tank Dell gets hurt. That's very unfortunate. That's really bad for Tao going into the playoffs. I don't think it's a very good roster, obviously. But Tank Dell was a very good player, and losing him is, what looks to me to be his best player outside of maybe Tua and Raheem Mostert. Those are kind of a good good trio there. Losing him really does hurt because he was looking really electric. Looks like a really fun rookie. Hopefully, he's back next year and ready to go. But a bunch of stinkers all around. 3.9 for Miles Sanders. I can't believe he's still starting. Then no one really having any flashy games and a solid game from Tua at 23. For Henry, 132, not bad. He has a bad game from her, only 8 points, and a fall off game from Keenan Allen. This is the first time that we've seen this stack really underperform like this, only combining for 18 points, which is not something that we've been accustomed to. But if he does something like that in the playoffs, it could really hurt him. But he does get bailed out this week with CeeDee Lamb hitting 32 and Jamar Chase getting 31. Then he starts Tyler Algier in his flex as well. I'm sure Josh Jacobs is on a bye, so forced into that situation. But he gets the job done with 132, a respectable amount of points, and you don't really need to do a whole lot when Tal's putting up sub 70. So
Yeah,
good win for Henry, and he secures at least the second seed.
I agree. He walked into a win here. Obviously, you don't want to see a team putting up 67 points, but with some injuries and some guys underperforming significantly, it's just not going to get the job done. And interestingly, talking about the Keenan Allen, Justin Herbert stack, it may not be something to worry about. The Patriots actually have, again, one of the better defenses in the league. In the last 4 weeks, they are holding opposing teams to the least points, total 46 points in the last 4 weeks. And in that time, they are 0-4. So
it's pain. I will say, though, to your point, the Chargers' schedule coming up is not easy. It may be a little bit better than the Patriots, but it is not an easy schedule. But my matchup is next, so I'll go ahead and hop in. This game was absolutely electric. I take on Noah here. Grumpy Monk Div versus Burn the Monk. I come out on top 153.76 to 152.18, the two highest scores on the week. With the win here, I moved to 7-6, and I remain in sixth place. That's where I was coming into the week. And Noah with the loss falls to 6-7 and goes to ninth place. This pretty much ends Noah's season because of tiebreaker reasons. I don't think he can get in over Bennett or Alex or me or Wyatt. So really tough for Noah to go out in this fashion. He had a really, really good game at 152. It's the QB decision really ends up.
We've talked about it all season.
We have talked about it several times, and he does it again. I don't know why. He's got this problem with T-Law. T-Law's been coming along, and I guess because of what he did earlier in the season, he really doesn't trust him. But he's come along recently, and obviously now he's hurt, but gives him 29 on the bench as opposed to Sam Howell giving him 17 in the starting lineup, and those 12 points would have made the difference. But Brian Robinson got hurt in this game, which also would have made the difference. So very unfortunate for him. Kyron Williams, 20 points. The dude is an absolute stud. I don't know why Bennett traded him. He is incredible. 20 points, and that was shocking. He only put up 20. DK Metcalf with his season high of 37. This was really difficult to watch on Thursday night for me. Chris Godwin, 7.9. Didn't catch a pass, but he scores 8 points. Travis Kelce, 12.1, a really bad game for him. Chuba Hubbard, 22, and Joe Mixon, 29.7. The game came down to Joe Mixon last night, and he needed 1.7 in OT, and I was absolutely just grinding my teeth trying to get this game out. But I come out on top here. Huge game from Dak again, 34 points. Mike Evans, 29. Trey McBride, 22, and then just a bunch of consistency kind of throughout the team. So 153 gets the job done, and man, this was really difficult, but this win will go a long way for me.
Yeah, and I think you covered it well. It was a clincher. It was a nail biter. You both had some guys either on bye or injured that might be playing. Obviously Jetta's on bye, but he wouldn't have played this week anyway, probably with the injury if they weren't. So it's interesting to see that you get the 1-point dub. And speaking of 1-point dubs, we've actually had, I believe if I counted right, we've had 5 different 1-point matchups, less than 2 points difference.
That is just absolutely insane.
And it really is. And so the scoring adjustments that we've made have really made a difference in terms of bringing things closer. And so I'll give a pat on the back to me and you, commission deputy. Here in our last matchup, Tower of London gets a really big necessary sub 100-point dub over Baby Want Milky, officially mathematically eliminating him from playoff contention and dropping him. Actually, he moves up with this loss because Tao scored less points than him.
I guess, dude, I don't even know.
He moves up to 10th, but either way, Tower of London moves up into seventh at 7-6. And it was really the injury to Christian Kirk. He blew out his cock in the first catch of the game last night and never returned. Diving into the scores a little bit more, you see Charlie without Josh Allen, and he puts up sub 100 points again. I mean, we've talked about it. It takes more than a quarterback, but when your team is only a quarterback and you don't have him, you're bound to most likely lose a week. Austin Eckler really doesn't look good. Of course, we talked about the good Patriots defense, but he just doesn't look good at all anymore. Damian Pierce kind of a return. DeAndre Hopkins continues to overperform what people think he can do. He gets a good game out of Chig, Antonio Gibson, and Deontay Johnson, honestly, but it just wasn't enough. Patrick Mahomes really underperforms at 13. Zach Moss underperforms at 7. Marquise Brown drops a goose egg. Josh Down underperforms at 4. And Najee Harris underperforms at 9. And somehow Bennett still gets the win here. Christian McCaffrey with 22 and Chris Olave with almost 17 highlight his team.
Yeah, obviously this is kind of a shitty game, but I know that Christian Kirk thing just kind of put a stamp to Noah's season, especially when you think about it. Because if Bennett loses this game, Noah's very much in contention. So there's a lot of other things at play here, and Charlie dropping this game ends up hurting a couple people with Bennett winning this one. So sub 90 win. It's a little tough to watch a guy who's in playoff contention win a game with less than 90 points when everyone else is doing their best to win. But I guess Bennett gets it done, and he's still in 7th. So shout out to him for winning a stinker.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll see the results really of his trade as we come into week 14 and into the playoffs if he makes it there. But again, I don't like it, but we'll see how it works out for him. But either way, diving into the week 14 matchups here, of course, we have mine at the top as always. I play Henry this week, and he's currently the number 2 team, and I am scared about our matchup. I mean, my team has really come along from where it's been just a few weeks ago with some trades I've made and getting some guys back to full health, although I did lose Ramondre in week 13. Henry's currently projected 13 points higher than me. And it's pretty scary. I mean, obviously a key matchup to watch for me is the Vikings versus Vegas. Vegas has a pretty bad defense, and we could see them overperform. But beyond that, I've got a tough matchup, Devontae Smith against Dallas, seemingly tough matchup with ETN against Cleveland. But I hope Achane can really overperform against a bad Titans defense, and I'm hoping Michael Pittman can as well. Devontae Adams against Minnesota, obviously one of the worst defenses. I'm hoping that can be a shootout, and I can put up some good points. And then looking at Henry's team, he does have Justin Herbert and Keenan Allen versus Denver, and their defense has really come along recently, so we can see if they'll keep that going. However, I am a little bit nervous about Josh Jacobs versus Minnesota and David Montgomery versus Chicago. 2 pretty bad defenses, and we could see these guys put up a lot of points. CeeDee Lamb with a medium matchup against Philly, and then both of his flex players have pretty easy matchups. So,
yeah, both teams are in at this point. Henry, actually, I think is guaranteed the 2 seed, assuming Al beats Tal. He's guaranteed the 2 seed, but I think you're anywhere between like a 3 seed and a 7 seed. So, it'd be nice to get a win here for you, obviously. And, like you said, there's a couple tough matchups. We've seen some of these teams get exposed. Cleveland just got exposed. Kyron Williams just went off on them. And then Achane, you just got to trust the Miami defense or the Miami offense. But I am interested to see sort of how that committee works with Raheem Mostert and how they're going to approach that situation going forward. Obviously, Achane's the young buck, and Raheem Mostert's just been their consistent guy all season. But we'll see how he gets incorporated in. There was a blowout game against Washington, and we'll see if they're in closer games how it turns out. But this should be a good one, 2 playoff teams, and kind of just giving us a preview of some good football to come. So this will be a fun one to watch out for.
yeah, and it's going to be interesting because if obviously if Eli loses, and that's the next matchup we're going to talk about, and I win, I jump him. And if I beat Henry by enough, there's a chance that I can catch him in the tiebreaker and take the 2 seed. But
aren't you down like 200 points to him?
Am I?
I think, dude, he's up by like a lot.
I thought it was like 80.
I think it's way more than you think.
Okay, well,
hold on. Let me fact check this really, really quick. Let's see here. So Henry has 1689. The second place team is Wyatt at 1565. You are 200 points behind him at 1469.
Okay, well, he's going to put up 0, and I'm going to put up 220.
It is crazy how many more points Henry has than the rest of the league. But yeah, next matchup: Netflix and Hill versus the Waiver Wizard. Eli versus Alex, projected 119 to 115. An absolute must win for Alex. He loses, he's done. And then, like you said, if Eli loses, there's several people that could pass him in the standings. Me and Wyatt, you and Bennett as well, potentially. So, both teams or Eli's clinched, but this is a really, really big game for both guys, I think. For seeding, and then of course Alex is a must win to get in. Stroud against the Jets going to be tough. I know he's got Jared Goff as well on his team, who's got Chicago this week. So, it kind of depends where he wants to put his marbles. The Jets defense, Jets secondary specifically is very strong, and he just lost his top receiver in Tank Dell. So, but he's been great this season. He's QB4. So, it depends if you want to ride the guy who's been consistent all season or go with the matchup play. It'll be a decision for Alex to make. We've seen QB decisions already ruin a season. So, we'll see what he does here. Jalen Warren against New England, that's very tough. Tony Pollard against Philly is very tough. And then Adam Thielen, who's fallen off really heavily, is going against New Orleans, which is actually not a terrible matchup. Their secondary is a bit beat up, but he's been pretty uninvolved after the new coaching changes have kind of schemed him out of the offensive plan. And then Amon-Ra and Sam Laporta going against Chicago. Zay Flowers against the Rams. Gabe Davis coming off the bye against KC. You never know what you're going to get from Gabe Davis. He could absolutely throw up a goose or a 30 bomb. And then for Eli, he's got Brock Purdy against Seattle. I expect big things from the Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk stack. We saw the Cowboys just absolutely destroy this defense, and I expect Purdy to do the same. Jahmyr Gibbs is in that same matchup against Chicago. Just kind of depends who gets the touchdowns in that game. And then Goddard, maybe with the return, this could be big for him because he's got Logan Thomas on the bye. So his only tight end is Goddard against Dallas and Swift against Dallas, and then Jordan Addison in a soft matchup against Vegas. No really good matchups for either of these guys, honestly. There's a couple decent ones, but in general, other than Purdy and Brandon Ayuk, kind of bad matchups, especially for Alex. So I'm curious if he can overcome that and get a much needed win here.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I think it's going to come down to really quarterback and wide receiver one for both teams in terms of potentially the highest scores. Obviously, Brock Purdy against Seattle and Tyreek Hill against Tennessee. And then you got CJ Stroud and Amon-Ra versus New Jersey and Chicago, respectively. So I think that those are really your 4 key guys to watch up in this matchup. Obviously, if he swaps him for Goff, then that could change things, but who knows?
Stack versus stack would be pretty exciting. I didn't even mention Tyreek Hill when I was reviewing Eli's team. There's just no point. You know what he's going to do.
Yeah.
He's ridiculous. It's not even funny at this point. He's on pace for like 2,100 receiving yards.
Oh, I know. It's insane.
It'd be an NFL record.
Yeah, and he got drafted 10th. It was very similar to how I got Jetta's last year at 11, and he just put up so many points for me. But either way, our next matchup here, which Al is for some reason scared of in the group chat today, we have the first place team, Paul Allen, 10-3, currently projected 129 over Riley Reed option, who's currently projected 86. He's at 4-9 in 11th place. His team is banged up. He does have his roster set as much as it can be, and he has projected 86 points, which is not what you want to see. Al has the advantage on every comparison at the moment, and the line is currently minus 42.7.
Yeah, do you think there's any way that Tal wins this? Yeah, I don't really see any way. So we're pretty much figuring that Tal's going to stay in this 11 seed, and Al secures a bye with a win. I mean, that's all I can really say here.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can see, maybe Derrick Henry misses a game with the concussion, Christian Watson misses a game with whatever he has, and then A.J. Brown drops a goose egg against Dallas, and then Tal's team still has to go off, and that's the only way I see this happening.
Yeah, not looking good. We'll just move on from that game. That's not really one to keep an eye on. But next up is my matchup. Scary Terry's Big Toe, Burn the Monk. I'll probably have come up with a team name here soon. Now that week, that was a one and done team name. Currently protected 124 to 115. Both teams sitting at 7-6. The winner of this game is in the playoffs 100%. The loser probably still going to be in pending an absolute implosion and losing by 50 points or so to Alex if he were to win and boot one of us out. So both guys sitting pretty well in here, but pretty big matchups to watch is Dak versus Jalen in the same game. Philly versus Cowboys. Both guys, at the helm. Dak's been incredibly hot lately. He's been the hottest QB in fantasy, and Jalen Hurts has been right behind him. Both MVP candidates right now. So I'm pretty excited. Currently QB2 and QB3 for fantasy on the season, and I think they're also like 1 and 2 for MVP, or maybe Lamar's in there. So both top 3 candidates for MVP, which is exciting. I've got Brees against Houston, which you would think is a good matchup, but the Jets offense has been really bad. I've heard Zach Wilson is probably going to be starting again this week, which at least they're a little bit better than they were with Tim Boyle. So that's nice to see. Zach Charbonnet, who isn't even the RB1 on his own team, is my new RB2 against San Francisco. I expect absolutely nothing to come from him. Mike Evans against Atlanta. That should be good. AJ Terrell has a concussion. I don't think he'll be playing. Justin Jefferson is back in my starting lineup. I have really high hopes he's going to play this week. He's still listed as questionable, but I don't think it's a matter of time before they announce him as an official starter. He's projected 16, and I just have no doubt in my mind that he's sailing over 16 in his first game back against the Raiders. He's going to tear them up. Then Isaiah Likely is in my starting lineup because Trey McBride is on a bye, my final player on a bye, who's been really, really good. But Isaiah Likely, we'll see if he can get involved. And then Cooper Kupp against Baltimore is brutal, and Rashee Rice against Buffalo. We'll see how that goes. For Wyatt, he's got Alvin Kamara against Carolina. He's going to shred them. Pacheco against Buffalo is pretty bad. Nico Collins against the Jets is pretty bad. Garrett Wilson, we went over that against Houston. Could be kind of go either way. Evan Greenham against Cleveland, kind of tough. DJ Moore against Detroit is easy. And Javonte against the Chargers is easy. So, some decent matchups across the board here, and I expect this to be a good game. I'm excited for it, but I don't feel too pressured to win it, which is fortunate after our final weeks last week. So,
Yeah,
me and Wyatt are kind of in cruise control and just hoping for the best here.
I think I'm going to comfortably say it. I'm going to put this on the primetime matchup of the week. It's win and in for both of these teams, and win and most likely in. I mean, lose and most likely in anyway with, some how bad the bottom of the board is looking. But like you said, Justin Jefferson, you diamond handsed him pretty much the entire season after you got him after week 4 from Alex. I tried to make multiple attempts to buy him from you, and you wouldn't budge. And here you are riding with Zach Charbonnet until
it's hard to let go of a guy like that when you've held on to him for 9 weeks, just waiting and waiting. And I didn't want to, and I was ready to sell him, and then I was finally just like, no, man, I don't want to sell him because he's Jettas, and I haven't had him all season. I want to watch him play.
I know, man. I get it.
I'm so excited.
I loved him. People tried to buy him from me all the time, and I said no every time.
He's so fun to watch. I'm excited for him to be back.
Either way, very interesting matchup here. We have Grumpy Monk Diff versus Baby Want Milky, the 9th seed versus the 10th seed, but there's a big gap between them, 6-7 and 4-9. Currently, Noah is projected 1 point higher, and this could be relevant. I mean, if Noah makes it to 7-7, Alex loses, and I think
Bennett loses.
And Bennett loses. He could be the 7-7 team that makes it into the playoffs. Obviously, well, he doesn't even have a quarterback in at the moment because Sam Howell bye
and T-Law's out.
Trevor Lawrence is injured. So this is going to be interesting to see who he streams. That could make the difference. Obviously, Charlie has Josh Allen back against Kansas City. He's going to get his points. And the rest of his team is going to be really interesting. Charlie's also missing a player. Christian Kirk is going to be out next week for sure. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah. I don't think he's expected to miss time.
Yeah. Okay. So I think those are the key matchups, really, whoever they replace those players with. And then if their team can just perform as projected, it's going to be a close matchup regardless. And I think that Noah's going to get it. And I think that he's going to have hope. I'm not going to say he
needs a lot of points for sure.
I'm not going to say he makes it into the playoffs, but I'm going to say he gets hope.
Yeah, he's going to need a lot of points to overcome the other guys in the tiebreaker, plus a win, obviously. So if he can go out and put up 150 again like he just did, there is a chance. So he needs a big week again. and of course a win. So, but final matchup is no longer tanking and Tower of London, no longer taking, sitting in 12th, secured his bye in the Poop Bowl, and then Bennett sitting in 7th, still in playoff contention. A win and Bennett is in. A loss, and there are other things that we could talk about. We're running out of time, so I'll go a little bit quicker. He's going to need Patrick Mahomes to bounce back. 13 points from Mahomes is not going to do the job. Marquise Brown is on a bye, so he's down him. We'll have to replace him. And then Sam is down Kyler and James Conner. I think he has Justin Fields, though, so he could slot him in there. Neither of these rosters are sets. The projection isn't even really relevant, which is currently 109 to 73, but neither of them are finalized, so I'm not really going to bother going over them. But Debo against Seattle is going to be something. If Sam's going to win this game, that's going to be huge. And then for Bennett, Christian McCaffrey against Seattle, it's Christian McCaffrey. He's obviously going to go off. But this is a big game for Bennett. He wins and he's in. So best of luck to him. For Sam, this doesn't matter at all. He's just playing spoiler at this rate. I'm going to at least encourage him to set a lineup because of competitiveness of the league. But, big game for Bennett, needs to secure the win.
Yeah, absolutely. Big implications. If Bennett loses, like you said, other things can happen. And Sam is trying to play spoiler again. So we'll see if he can put the pieces together and do it. But we'll dive in and talk through some injuries for a minute or two, and then we'll hit our quick hits talking points. Marquise Brown, he has a heel injury. They have a bye week in week 14, so he may miss some time. He may not. Amari Cooper goes down with a concussion. His status is questionable at the moment. Kenny Pickett, ankle. His fantasy season is over. He may come back in, like you said, maybe week 17, week 18, but
yeah, and if the Steelers make the playoffs, he could be back. So that's at least relevant, but not for fantasy. He's done. And then Trevor Lawrence sprained his ankle. I'm sure most saw last night. His timeline is unknown. That's going to be relevant for all of his pass catchers, maybe even for ETN without their star QB at the helm. Ramondre Stevenson sprained his ankle. He could miss 1 to 4 weeks. That's a big time frame. Who knows? With the playoffs coming up, how much of that's going to be relevant? But that definitely hurts. DeAndre Swift. Ankle injury? I thought it was a head injury. I didn't actually. He's injured of some sort. His timetable is unknown. We actually don't really know much about him. But Kenneth Gainwell could be potentially relevant if he misses a week. I've also heard he could play this week.
Okay.
But I think it's still up in the air. Tank Dell, fractured fibula. He is out for the season. That sucks for the Jags. Sucks for fantasy. Sucks for Tal. That just sucks in general. It sucks for Stroud too. Honestly, very good for Nico Collins.
And Noah Brown.
Yeah, and Noah Brown. Yes, very, very fair. Christian Kirk, groin. He's expected to miss some time. Unknown as well how much time he is missing. But he went down after one play last night. Puka Nacua, AC shoulder sprain. Low chance he did play. He came back in after this injury. He also hurt his ribs in this game.
Mm-hmm.
But he played through it. Could potentially miss a week. We'll have to see. And then finally, Christian Watson, hamstring injury. He has kind of a chronic hamstring injury at this rate his whole career. Timeline is unknown for this. Nothing official. Wow, that was a lot. That's probably the most we've ever had for injuries. And that's just fantasy players.
Yeah, just guys. Crazy. And I even excluded some that I didn't think were that relevant. There were too many to go over all of them. But
ridiculous.
Moving into our quick hits, we mentioned it. Achane bounced back. He scores 25 points. I'm confident with him going forward. That's really all I wanted to say there. And then as for the playoffs, obviously I clinched my playoff berth. There are now 4 teams that are clinched and 3 teams that are eliminated mathematically. And it's going to be interesting to see who those final 3 spots go to. Noah, unfortunately, is essentially eliminated. A lot of things have to go his way. He has to win. Bennett has to lose. Alex has to lose. And he has to outscore some guys. Like I said, Charlie is now officially eliminated. Sam is guaranteed the first round Poop Bowl bye, which is a negative. We've explained this on end. And you want to start taking a couple of these too?
Yeah, I'm going to go back and point out the Noah situation here. So I am 15 points lower than Wyatt. So just put that in phrase for total season points. And I am 120 points higher than Noah. So Noah cannot catch me. There's no chance. So that takes him to only being able to pass Bennett and Alex. If Alex loses and Noah wins, he would pass Alex. If Bennett loses and Noah wins, he would have to outscore Bennett by 23 points in order to take Bennett's spot. So I said Noah's essentially eliminated. He could still theoretically get in, but that would take a lot of things to happen. Alex loss and Bennett losing, and Alex scoring Bennett by 23, and Bennett's playing Sam. So very tough. Like I said, Bennett plays Sam. Bennett is in with a win, looking pretty good for Bennett. That's why it looks really bad for Noah. And then I kind of just said the winner of me and Wyatt is in. And then Alex could technically pass the loser of our matchup with a win and a 60-point differential win and a win of his own. So if he scores 160 and I score 90 and I lose, he would pass me and I would lose my spot. And then he could also be in if Bennett loses and he wins. That would also put Alex in. He has 50 more points than Bennett, so he would 100% pretty much be in with that. So, wow, it is crazy. You could take a couple more of these last ones.
Yeah, yeah. It's really interesting to see the playoff implications. I feel like they're so much closer than they were last year. People care about them more. There's so much more involvement. And really a lot of team nationalism, team pride going into this last week, trying to get your boys ready to clinch your playoff berth. Speaking of clinching something, Al clinches the first round bye if he gets a win in week 14 or if Henry loses to me. Obviously, there's no way I can catch Al. I can't get 2 wins. So if Henry loses, he's guaranteed that first round bye. Speaking of buys and the playoffs in general, it's likely that we will have one 7-7 team make it this year, and it's going to come down to a fairly close points for tiebreaker, if I think.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously either me or Wyatt will be 7-7, and I have pretty solid confidence that one of us is going to make it. So this seems to be pretty true, pretty accurate. There could also technically be two that make it in, which would be crazy.
Yeah.
If Alex or Noah were to make it, and then me or Wyatt would also be 7-7. So two 7-7 teams would be insane. I know last year it was what, like 5, 8-5 teams.
Yeah.
I could be exaggerating, but it was something like
8-6.
that. And then there was one or 8-6, yeah, sorry. And then there was one 7-7 team last year, I think, as well. And then Poop Bowl favorite. I guess this is our opinions here.
Yeah, this is our last point. We kind of just wanted to talk over it with this last minute. What do you got? Who do you think? I'll tell you mine.
Yeah, I've got mine. Sam gets the bye, which hurts him pretty drastically. That really does suck to get the bye. But Sam is not going to be my favorite. I know he's been bad all season. I think he's put together. He made some moves that like make me a little bit confident in his team, at least to beat one of these other sewers. My least favorite team right now. It's kind of between two, but my favorite to lose would probably have to be Tal. His team is just looking at his roster. I'm not going to go over his roster again, but it is just it's miserable. He doesn't score 100 ever, so that's my favorite to win.
Yeah,
to lose.
I agree. I mean, I think, and we talked about this, Sam getting the Poop Bowl bye. It's win and out in the Poop Bowl playoffs. So Sam gets one less chance to win, but I do think he will get a win in his last 2 weeks. Tal, I think, is going to lose out all 3 weeks in the Poop Bowl. Unfortunately, loses Tank Dell this week, which really hurts him. And he's broken the league low all-time score this season. So I think it's destined for it to be him, and he better start training for the beer mile. But
yeah,
beyond that about does it for us, guys. Thanks for watching another week. Good luck to you, and I hope you make the playoffs.
Yeah, best of luck to everyone, and except for Wyatt. Actually, it doesn't really matter. All good luck to Wyatt. And I hope we both just score a lot of points and don't have to worry about it. Cheers, boys.
Cheers, boys. Good podcast.
Good pod.